I'm 73 years old. My name is Diane Coleman. And last fall, the man I loved before I ever understood what love could cost me walked back into my life at my granddaughter's engagement party smiling, shaking my husband's hand, and by the time I understood what he really wanted, he had already gotten his hands on a fortune my family had spent years building. You think you know what betrayal looks like. Wait until it wears a familiar face. It was a warm evening in October, the kind of night Ohio only gives you maybe twice a year, when the leaves turn gold and the air still smells faintly like summer. My granddaughter Ashley was celebrating her engagement in our backyard in Dayton. String lights strung between the oak trees, a rented tent, my famous scalloped potatoes on the buffet table. My husband Walter and I had been married 47 years. 3 children, 6 grandchildren, one modest but comfortable retirement built dollar by dollar from his 31 years at the plant and my 30 years teaching 3rd grade. Our son-in-law, Kevin, Ashley's father, married to our daughter Susan, pulled me aside near the drink table, practically vibrating with excitement, his phone already halfway out of his pocket. "Diane, I want you to meet someone. This is the guy I told you about, the investment thing I mentioned last week." I turned around, and the ground tilted under my feet. "Hello, Diane," he said, that same slow smile I hadn't seen in almost half a century. "It's been a long time, Nathaniel Bishop." I hadn't heard that name spoken out loud in 48 years, the man I fell in love with at 25, before I ever met Walter. Older now, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. But the eyes were the same. The eyes that used to look at me like I was the only person in our small Ohio town worth looking at twice. "You two know each other?" Kevin asked, confused by the sudden silence stretching between us. "A lifetime ago," Nathaniel said smoothly, before I could even find my voice. Small world, isn't it? I should have said something right then. I should have pulled Walter aside and told him everything before the night went 1 minute further. Instead, I smiled, shook Nathaniel's hand like he was any other stranger at my granddaughter's party, and let the celebration go on around me while my stomach quietly turned to ice. Believe me, seeing Nathaniel again wasn't even the worst part, not by far. Over the next few weeks, I noticed small things I didn't want to notice. Kevin started talking constantly about the fund, some private investment group Nathaniel was putting together, promising returns nobody could get from a regular bank. Walter, usually so careful with money, started asking me questions about our retirement savings. "What if we moved some of it somewhere it could actually grow, Diane? Kevin says this guy is the real deal." I told myself it was fine. Kevin was excited, Walter was curious, and maybe Nathaniel really had become some kind of financial success story after all these years. People change. 48 years is a very long time. I pushed the unease down into the pit of my stomach and told myself over and over that I was imagining things. Have any of you ever watched your family get pulled towards something and known, deep in your gut, that it was wrong but stayed quiet because you didn't want to be the difficult one? That was me. Week after week, for 2 months straight. The crack that split everything wide open came on a Tuesday in December. Susan called me in tears. "Mom, Kevin put our savings into Nathaniel's fund, all of it. Ashley and James's wedding money too. He said it was a sure thing." My hands went numb around the phone. "How much, Susan? Tell me exactly." "Almost $210,000. I sat down hard on my kitchen chair, the phone nearly slipping from my fingers. That was everything Susan and Kevin had saved for 15 years of double shifts and skipped vacations. That was Ashley's entire wedding fund, gone in a single wire transfer. And I knew in my bones, the way you know a storm is coming before the sky ever changes color, that this was not a coincidence. Nathaniel Bishop had not walked back into my family's life by accident. That night, I told Walter everything. About 1977, the year I turned 25. About the man I dated before him, the summer before I ever met Walter at a church picnic. About how Nathaniel and I had planned, quietly, to get married one day, until my father, the police chief of our small town, arrested him for a robbery at the hardware store where he worked nights. Nathaniel swore up and down he was innocent. I wanted to believe him, but the evidence my father's department gathered was solid enough that a jury convicted him, and my father forbade me from ever seeing him again. Eventually, I did what a frightened young woman does when her family closes ranks around her. I walked away and never spoke his name out loud again. He went to prison for 4 years. I married Walter the following year and buried that whole chapter so deep, I almost convinced myself it never happened. Walter's face went pale as I spoke, his jaw tightening in a way I'd rarely seen. Then he said something that broke me open in a completely different way. "Diane, I always knew there was someone before me. I just didn't know it was him. I didn't know his name." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 47 years of marriage, and my husband had carried a piece of this silently the entire time, never asking, never pushing, never once making me feel small about it, because he didn't want to lose me either. But there was no time to sit with that revelation. Susan and Kevin's savings were already gone, and Walter was still talking about moving part of our own retirement into the same fund. I needed to know exactly what Nathaniel was doing before another dollar left this family. I called our nephew Marcus, who worked as a forensic accountant in Columbus, and begged him to look into the fund before another dollar moved anywhere. What he found 3 days later stopped my heart cold. There was no fund. Not really, not in any way that would hold up to a single serious question. The investment firm wasn't registered the way Nathaniel claimed it was. And Marcus found something even worse buried in Ohio's public business records. A company Nathaniel had formed months earlier had filed a statement naming Kevin as someone authorized to act on its behalf, something Kevin swore he had never agreed to and had never even heard of. "He's not just taking their money," Marcus told me, his voice shaking. "He's built this so Kevin's name is all over it. If investigators find this before we can explain it, Kevin could look like part of the scheme instead of a victim of it." The truth hit me all at once. This wasn't random. This wasn't even really about money, not at its core. Nathaniel had spent 4 years in prison, 4 years he had always blamed on my father, and eventually on me, for a love story that ended before it ever got to start properly. And now, decades later, he had found the perfect, patient revenge, get close to my family, earn their trust week by week, drain everything we'd built over half a century, and vanish while leaving my son-in-law holding all the blame. I confronted him myself. I didn't tell Walter I was going. I drove straight to the address on his business card, an office building on the edge of downtown Columbus, and I walked into his office without an appointment, without giving myself a single second to lose my nerve. The moment Kevin mentioned my name, "You knew exactly whose family you'd found, didn't you?" I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Nathaniel didn't even flinch. He leaned back slowly in his leather chair, calm as still water. 4 years, Diane. 4 years of my life, gone, because your father decided I wasn't good enough for his daughter and needed a reason to keep me away from you. I lost my 20s in a cell. I lost the only girl I ever truly loved. You really think I was just going to let that go quietly? Kevin didn't do anything to you. Ashley didn't do anything to you. My grandchildren have never even heard your name before this year. No, he said quietly, almost gently. But you did, Diane. You chose silence over me, Every single time it mattered. I stood there, 73 years old, staring at the man I once thought I'd spend my entire life beside, and I understood something I will never forget. Some wounds don't heal with time. They simply wait for the right moment to collect what they believe they're owed. 48 years, and he had turned every ounce of that old pain into a plan precise enough to threaten 3 generations of my family in the span of a single holiday season. I want you to sit with that for a moment, the way I had to, driving home that night with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The very next morning, with everything Marcus had documented spread across my kitchen table, I contacted the FBI. It took 11 long weeks. 11 weeks of sleepless nights, of Susan crying quietly after the kids had gone to bed, of Kevin sitting frozen in fear that he'd be blamed for a crime he never even understood he was being pulled into. 11 weeks before federal agents finally arrested Nathaniel Bishop at that same downtown office, before investigators moved to freeze the accounts connected to the scheme, before the evidence Marcus had uncovered helped them establish that Kevin was a victim in all of this, not a conspirator. We got back a little over half the money in the end. Not all of it, some had already been moved overseas and couldn't be fully recovered. Ashley's wedding happened anyway, smaller than she'd once dreamed, held in our own backyard instead of the venue she'd had her heart set on. She told me afterward it was more beautiful this way. Honestly, I think she just didn't want to watch me cry about it again. Nathaniel took a plea deal in the end, 9 years in federal prison. These days, our family gatherings are quieter than they used to be, the laughter a little more careful. Kevin still flinches visibly whenever anyone brings up investments, even harmless ones. Susan still checks their bank balance every single morning before her coffee, an old habit born from fear that I don't think will ever fully fade away now. And Walter reaches for my hand these days in a way he didn't used to, quietly, like he's making sure I'm still there beside him, still choosing him, even after everything that surfaced. I think about my father sometimes, gone now for 30 years, and I wonder if he ever imagined that the way he handled Nathaniel's case would come circling back, half a century later, dressed in an expensive suit, smiling warmly at a backyard engagement party. I understand why my father believed he was protecting me all those years ago. I'm honestly not sure I'll ever forgive myself for staying silent that first night, instead of speaking up the moment I saw Nathaniel's face again. Would you have said something right away, the second you recognized him? Or would you have stayed quiet too, hoping against hope it was nothing at all, the way I did for 2 long months? If you've ever had a piece of your past come back in a way you never expected, tell me in the comments below. Maybe your story ended differently than mine. Maybe it didn't. Either way, I'd like to hear it. This story is based on real events, with some fictional elements added for dramatic effect.